What was that? It was your Tyler Perry impression. Oh God. What?
That was my Medea voice.
Oh, gotcha.
Nothing is accurate in this article except for mine and Oprah's names. That's what he said. I mean, you see what I mean? You gotta stick around. I mean, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I mean, they pay us to do this. So we go off every week right here on BeExposedRadio.com.
Long live Pop. Y'all can go ahead and cry now. I'm gonna show these niggas what to do with one of your beats, man. I am Gas, by the way.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. It's me, your host, Mr. Couser. So today is rough. It's been a rough 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's been a rough week. So yeah, we gonna work through this. It's been a minute since I've had to do this, and we just go work through. One, I want to say thank you to everybody who has been supporting the Artist Exchange Radio Show. We are entering our 6th year here at Be Exposed Radio and on the Artist Exchange Radio Show in general. And I just I've been thinking about like what is next and how do we can you turn down this mic just a little bit? And just what's next for the Artist Exchange and how do I grow it and make it better, and you know what's the next level for it in terms of I've been interviewing a number of co-hosts and some potential like guest hosts that will be coming by. So look out for some new things in the upcoming months for the Artist Exchange as we hit our 7th year. No, this is the 6th year. So in August, it'll be 6 years. So I really want to say thank you to everybody that has been a guest, who has been supportive, who has sponsored over the years. So a lot of things will be changing because I am not the same person creatively that I was when I first started this. Radio for me was an escape from what I thought was the end of my creativity in terms of being an artist. I got tired of the same process of being an artist. I got tired of the same routine of being an artist, and often you get a little frustrated in your creative endeavors, and I definitely was that person for a minute, and I really didn't know how to like replenish myself. That wasn't a process. Now over the last couple years, I've learned some different things in terms of how to restructure myself as an artist and how to kind of get back to what you're doing. So I create bridges now in my artistry so I don't get burned out. So if most people don't know, for a number of years, sometimes on, sometimes off, I've been a teaching artist. I've taught in many Baltimore City public schools, some in the Maryland area, some charter schools, some group homes, some enrichment programs for homeschooling organizations and parents that choose to homeschool their children. And so I've done that for a number of years, and I've taught theater, I've taught music now. This year was my first year teaching music, vocal music, visual arts. So that's been kind of the thing that keeps me energized. Often as an artist, if you sit yourself aside from what you do normally, you'll always stay eager to do that thing that you do. Meaning, so as a stage manager, and people don't know what a stage manager is, that's the person that runs the show once the production is up and running. And I often made myself become the stage manager because it forced me to stay passionate about being an actor and being on stage. But acting got to be really difficult for me, and it became very difficult to maintain it and to grow in it. And I really I had to really maintain it, but I'm gonna stay locked in. I'm gonna stay my mind is just in a different place right now. So I'm going to go to a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
Like the one thing you always gotta remember is people gonna try to project their insecurities onto you. But you can't listen to what them niggas saying. You gotta get out here and do your shit regardless. You gonna do what you love for the rest of your life anyway. So why not turn that shit into something? Be a man of everything you say. This shit bigger than me, man. Like yeah, I'm good and all that, but you know what I mean? I ain't shit without y'all. So no matter what you up, you gotta go hard. Don't matter. Can you imagine how I really having nothing is? Stomach growling, you ain't got no food in the fridge. Surviving on a jail diet of water and bread. No father figure, that's cause my father dead. Mom's bringing different niggas in and out the crib. No money, so you seen it's less than all your friends. But it a joke because your mother was a crackhead. Older sister hoeing off, giving all the homies head. I could wait for your response, but they let her hear me talk, so I'll just wait for the applause. I always knew that I was great, I got them haters so appalled. I'ma make it out the dark.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to today's graduation ceremony. Students, when you hear the reason or reasons for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Once you've exited, remove your cap and gown and proceed into the unknown. Too tired. Family trip. Part-time job. Helping around the house. Sick day. Starting the holidays early. Just because.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school. How many days of school has your child missed this year? Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org today. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
This is a Poverty ENT exclusive. Next stop, Texaco, strapped up, you already know. Fuck niggas hate, that's how it goes. Bros with me, yeah, it's time to go.
Jacqueline.
Yes, Mom?
I wanted to talk to you about something and... Oh, wait. Hold on. I just got a text. Oh, there's another one. Wow. Busy me. So anyway...
Oh, wait, Mom. I just got a message. My friends keep commenting on my comment. Oh, there's another one. So many comments on my comment.
Oh, I can't wait to watch TV tonight. Playoffs!
Hey, guys, check out my new video game. Pew, pew. Wait. Mom, what? Huh?
What? Hold
What'd
on.
you say? Wait a second, what?
This weekend, unplug. Take your family to the forest. There's nothing in the world like experiencing nature firsthand. Trees, paths, bluebirds, streams. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artists Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly for her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hand she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not only by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hands to the poor. She breaketh forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her households are clothed in scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he seeth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth it girdles until the merchant. Strength and honor her clothing, and she shall rejoice in the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up, and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but through excellence them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. So that was the virtuous woman. I should have read the more up-to-date version, because this lisp is getting me in trouble. But so that is something that I'll be reading on next Wednesday for a really special person in my life. On Wednesday, I lost a godmother, somebody who was really close to me. She had been battling with cancer, lung cancer, and lung cancer is one of those cancers that it can only really be maintained. It's nothing that it can go into remission, but you're basically maintaining it. And she had been struggling with it, and just in the last couple months finding out that she had stage 4 cancer, and she had did a lot to build up her strength. She had just gotten out of Georgetown Hospital in DC, and they brought her back home, and she had started her chemo treatment, and it was doing a lot of I don't want to say damage to her, because chemo kind of destroys your body to replenish it. And as I just said, lung cancer is not something that you can really get rid of. You can just maintain it. Because often you find out in the late stages that you have lung cancer. And Miss Diane was definitely, I call her Miss Diane, but Miss Diane was definitely a really special person in my life, and I am saddened at the fact that I no longer will be able to see her. And she has definitely been a blessing to me. One of my really, really good friends, Brandy, which is her daughter, we went to school together, and Brandy brought me and a couple of my other friends to church, and we met Miss Diane. And Miss Diane has definitely been like one of those mothers in my life. And I found out Wednesday night on my way back from another event that she had passed away that morning, and it was definitely like a horrible shock. And I really haven't really slept well, because for the last year I've been in kind of a transitional period with my relationships, and Miss Diane has been like a really good shoulder to lean on, a really good listener. And she doesn't necessarily give advice, but she listens very well, and you end up knowing what to do just by having a conversation with her. So she's always been somebody that I could call privately and not worry about my business being put out there, or other people talking about that. And with a church family, that's really a hard thing to find, because people in them wanting to help you share your business. And Ms. Diane was definitely somebody who I had grown very close to, and she was like my mom. And we definitely spent holidays together, always inviting me over and making me one of her children, and making me feel like one of her children. And it really has been a blow the last couple of days to even see my friend kind of mourn. And Brandy is definitely a really strong person, and she puts up a good front for the world. But I know this is devastating to her family. She was really close to her family and her friends, so I really wanted to give her just a mention. And that scripture that I read is what I'll actually be reading for her funeral on Wednesday. So I just say to people, draw close to your family. And as I was kind of saying a little bit, the last year has been a transition in how I have relationships with people. I've had to draw from a lot of people or close myself off just so I can reestablish some things within myself and create boundaries that I've never used before or had before. And when you lose somebody, it makes you think of all the time that you wasted. And I don't think I've wasted a lot of time this last year, but I've definitely made use of the time and just rebuilding how I allow people in my life, what boundaries I set, what restrictions I put on my relationships with people. And it's not me telling people what to do, but often you have to train people how to treat you. Because often a lot of us have not grown up in healthy relationships and healthy families, and we don't know how to accurately treat each other. And Miss Diane was definitely somebody who showed me, how to set boundaries in your life. And sometimes you have to say no. She was one of the first people who told me I needed to start saying no to people and showing people how to treat me. And that lesson really has sustained me, but it's definitely been something that's currently a project in my life. And it's going to be a really tough time, going through, especially the end of this year, because every Thanksgiving she has it at her house, and often Christmas and such. So it's going to be really difficult not to be around her anymore, and not be able to know that she'll be there, or I could just call her and eventually she'll answer her phone. But it's been really a sad couple days, and I don't know how to necessarily grieve like people would think normally. I just normally immerse myself into work more. But this is going to be a strange week, to say the least. It has been a strange week. And something felt funny that day, but sometimes you just chalk it up to just the weather's changing, the season's changing. But that was definitely, I can honestly say, devastating news. People die, and I'm getting more comfortable with death, and it's something that I've been able to see up close and personal in my life, and I definitely wanted to just share that moment with people. And as we kind of transition to another conversation, mental health is something that I've been kind of studying a lot lately. I don't feel like my mental health is necessarily affected, but I've been noticing, and one of the reasons why I've had to take a break from a number of the relationships in my life is because us Black people don't get the help that we need, and we grow up and grow into a lot of the relationships that we have in such a dysfunctional way, in such a dysfunctional is kind of the word that sticks out to me the most. But a lot of our relationships are based on a dysfunctional foundation, and most of that is stuff that we've brought into it and that other person has brought into it, and then we kind of build our relationship off of that dysfunction that both of us, and we begin to have relationships that are based on dysfunction. And I found myself with the friends that I do have spending a lot of times talking about things that have happened in my life, and you're not really healing. You're just talking about it. So you're complaining, and you're kind of further opening up that wound, and it's not healing. And I kind of start calling out those things, and a number of people, some people aren't ready to make that step towards growth and healing and being a better person. Not that anybody I know is bad. Some of them are, but not a lot of them are. But if you're not willing to at least receive the information that somebody who loves you is giving to you, it's really a hard thing. So there's an article that I'm gonna go over when we come back from the next break. But I wanted to address this because I just noticed it in a lot of my relationships with people. And I don't feel like I know everything or I'm better than they are, but I just think about how I treat people a lot. I think about the things that I've gone through personally, and how those things or those experiences or that trauma is funneled through me in my relationships. I'm super sensitive of that. But some people just aren't. Some people are not. Right. Some people just aren't ready to receive something's wrong with you. And some people are comfortable living in that trauma, that dysfunction, that pain. And I'm not going to sit by anymore and just be a part of it. I refuse to do it. And you start looking like the scars and the experiences of the people around you. It's not even your stuff, but you're bringing it home with you. You are living in it. You're, thank you. You're living in it. You're not growing from it. And I just saw a lot of the relationships, some family, some friends, a lot of friends and family that I have not spoken to in more than a year because our relationship became this dysfunctional exchange of trauma and pain and there's nothing and some of it you're not even talking about. For the most part in our families, we don't even talk about it. You know, and on past shows I've brought up, you know, certain hot topics, and you know, once the show is over and I'm getting messages and calls from family members, it becomes this thing of them defending themselves opposed to realizing that was my experience. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. I'm going to add some more people to this live. So definitely, if you're listening, please take a moment and share it out, add people, so on and so forth. So thank you. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
Exchange Radio Show every Friday 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Saturday 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artist, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com. I was meeting with a friend yesterday, and I've gotten to the point where don't ask me a question because the truth is going to come out. And
exactly.
Just don't do it.
If you ain't looking for the truth, don't come to me.
Don't do it because I can't hold my tongue. And she wants to be this stylist, boutique, but you're not doing anything in that nature, and I can't take you seriously if you're not doing those things. And I understood why people didn't take me seriously because I found myself in somebody else's lane. I was good at what I was doing and what I wanted to be, but I wasn't doing it for me. So how can I ask you to take me seriously if I'm living in somebody else's shoes?
And nobody can do what you do, and I think that that's a big problem that people face now. Like, you see what somebody else is doing and you want to do that when that's not your lane.
That's not your lane.
That's not what you're supposed to be doing.
But it's popular, it's getting that person money, it's getting that person applause. Oh, I want applause. I want money. Let me stand over here behind them.
And then a lot of times people aren't honest with themselves either. Like, I was thinking earlier today, I've been woke for almost 2 days, so so you get honesty, yes. And I was thinking, like, you know,
the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Far into this unknown to find who we really are. Crash into something new and take a break from our broken heart. Talk with the hip, tell me you lie. I think we should go for another round. Baby, try not to say too much. Let your love come down. If you wanna rule, it's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move. Don't wait on nobody else. And if it feels like a melody, sing a song, be my radio. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. Let the night unfold. I can tell that she can't get enough, show enough. She couldn't get the feels off from me. I know she couldn't get the feels off from me. Touching hands till we dance in the dark, show enough. She couldn't get the feels off from me. We do whatever you like. Get the feels off from me. I know she couldn't get the feels off from me. So let's slide, you and me alone, to find who we really are.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. My forehead is very shiny. Yeah, let me fix my shirt. So, yes, I'm back. And part of the discussion that I wanted to have today is on mental health and kind of the different things that affect it. In the last segment, I kind of shouted out Miss, I keep saying, Diane Kane. She is my godmother. like somebody who has really been supportive, and grief kind of can jumpstart depression and mental health, because depression is first thing I want to say is depression is normal. I am not a person, and I've never been a person that wants depression to be something that goes away. I have learned, and I learned this as a really young person, that depression is often, and in most cases, and I guess all the time, depression is your body's way of kind of doing some spring cleaning, getting rid of things, and forcing things to come up to the surface. Just like when you're at home and you're cleaning up and you're sweeping, and all that dust that's been under stuff, you're kind of sweeping it up, and it gets up into the air, and eventually you're getting rid of it. And you gotta kind of do a whole clean out. Depression is normal, especially in the world that we live in today, where everything is so fast, and we're working and we're trying to get things, and people growing, and we have access to things, but at the same time we have all these different outlets to get things out. We still are keeping a lot of that stuff in, and what happens is our body eventually gets a little worn out, and we begin to hold on to things that should have been easy to get rid of if we would have got rid of it or addressed it or faced it at the point of or at the first sight of it, or when it first happened. And we keep it inside. So depression happens when all that stuff is just laying around inside of us, and we're not doing anything about it, and we're not getting rid of it, and we're not clearing it out. And depression happens when it's just a buildup, and our body has gotten to its capacity with old stuff. And depression becomes abnormal when we don't address it, when we do what we always do and just try to work through it. And often depression can physically attack us and leave us vulnerable to illness and sickness, because it begins to mess with our immune system, and it kind of breaks down our body from the inside out. So depression is normal, but when it starts to last more than a couple days and gets into that week mark, and it is something that is just, you always feel kind of depleted, that's when it becomes a problem, because that's when it begins to affect us physically. And it can really damage us, and like I said, leave us open to illnesses and sickness, because it affects our immune system. So there was an article that I posted on the Artist Exchange radio show page, and I found it, and it talked about depression in black boys begins earlier than you think. And specifically, I really have been more intrigued and more interested in how depression works. The bigger umbrella issue is this mental disorder in general, but more so depression, because often we kind of dismiss the depression, and we often mask it with whatever our addiction is or whatever our vice is, and we can kind of hide it, whether it be food or, spending money or alcoholism or drug abuse or any addiction that we often take on to kind of mask that or make us feel better. We're trying to make ourselves feel better, but the depression can often overtake us. So this article went into some of the warning signs. Me being a black male, I'm not dismissing or ignoring that other people, black women, people in general exist, but I can only speak from my personal experience. And I understand that depression is something, it's real. And I've felt depressed a number of times throughout my life. I remember the first big time that it happened to me, I was in middle school. And in middle school, I went to school year round. So I was always in school. I rarely had any breaks. So at the end of the school year, I got 2 weeks. At the end of the summer, I got 2 weeks. And then we got a couple weeks for spring break and Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. But we got breaks throughout the year, but I still went to school year round. Mandatory summer school. And the first time it happened to me, I want to say, I'm trying to remember how old I was, but I probably was like between 12 and 13-ish, 14-ish. And I just remember I didn't want to go anywhere. And it happened over the course of the school year. So I would be up extremely. I was in school by 7:30 in the morning, which meant I had to get up so much earlier to actually get to school. Like I caught the bus to school in middle school, so I had to catch the bus downtown, and I got up early, and I just remember always feeling tired, and I contributed it to me having to get up, and then I was in school all day long and normally didn't get out until 6 o'clock. And then that was Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, when I came home and on the weekends, I didn't want to do anything. I stayed in the house and I felt like I was just moping around, and I didn't really have a focus or anything that I wanted to do, or I just didn't feel motivated to do anything. And I just remember my mother trying so many different things, like inviting my friends over, and like ordering pizza a couple times I remember doing. And I could feel like I was missing out on so much. Like my cousins and everybody would still go out and do stuff and come back and tell me what happened. And I just felt like I was missing out on the world, but I wasn't motivated to get up. But I'm gonna take another quick commercial break, and I'm gonna finish out the story, and I'm gonna get into the article. So don't go anywhere. The Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BigExposedRadio.com. We still on? We still on? So I'm gonna keep talking then. So I just remember always feeling like I was missing out, always feeling like I wanted to do things, like I had the urge to do things, because I was still very young and getting into my teenage years, and I just felt unmotivated. And that experience lasted, I want to say that was my 8th grade year, so it lasted a minute, and then it would happen a couple more times throughout my teenage years. But by the time I became like 19 and 20, it became seasonal. In that winter blues, I started feeling that. I started feeling every August and January. By the time I was 20, going on 21 when I went to college. And every August and every September while I was in college, I would feel deathly sick, to the point where I wouldn't go anywhere. So all of August, so most time it would be most of August, and it would be throughout January, because January was the month that we would come back into school. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back in just a couple minutes. So don't go anywhere. The Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BigExposedRadio.com.
Are you thinking about getting your GED diploma? Well, here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a number of pep talks that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You know that feeling? People look at you and don't believe in you.
You want some gentle encouragement.
Then you're on your way to your GED diploma and a better life.
But I know they're probably just a little bit nervous.
You can find it in yourself to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
A minute and listen to this flashback of the On the Come Up radio show.
But I meant you slap. So you want to stick on that. But anyway, slap ball.
You take
get slut walks now? What is going on?
Can I have some of that wine?
That was funny.
Not with the cups.
I got my cup right here, babe.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Hey, what's up, and welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio Show. I'm back here. I'm kind of talking a little bit about mental disorder, depression, and the article that I shared on the Artist Exchange page. I'll reshare it so it'll be at the top as well. But it talked about depression in young black men, and it was by Aaron Hunt. He is a graduate in Health and Disparities office, and so the authors were Aaron Hunt and David J. Robles. And it says from 2001 to 2015, the suicide risk for black boys between the ages of 5 and 11 was 2 to 3 times higher than that of white boys. According to a new research letter in the JAMA Pediatrics Bridge of 2018, this concerning trend continues through adolescence as reported by the Nationwide Youth Risk Behavior Survey. The rates of attempted suicide, including attempts that resulted in an injury, poisoning, or overdose, are 1.2 times higher among black males compared to white males. These persistent trends are enrooted in the life expectancies and disparities that black boys face. The APA Working Group on Health Disparities in Boys and Men recently released a new report on health disparities in racial, ethnic, and sexual minority boys and men, which includes a review of research which may help to explain the increase of suicide in black boys. Recent national conversations on suicide has gone past the usual reach out if you need help message to encouraging friends and family to reach out to individuals that they think might be in a suicidal or may be struggling with depression. This is undoubtedly important, but to do this, people need to know what depression looks like. From my experience, there are many different forms of depression, and we used to think that somebody who wore black all the time, and they didn't. As I was talking before, when I was younger, my first time dealing with it, I didn't want to do anything. They become withdrawn. As I've grown older, depression for me personally became to be something that was functional, because I overcompensated for the feelings of depressions that I had, and I began to really rely on those things that kind of uplift me. So I always stayed in theater, and I was able to keep my spirits up that way because it was something that I was really passionate about. So depression has many different looks to it, and we have to stop looking for those depressing, sorry, death-talking signs that we grew up to know. According to the APA report, even professional healthcare providers have trouble detecting depression among racial ethnic minority patients. Men from these groups are diagnosed with depression less than the non-Hispanic white males, and depression may also present itself differently in males as irrational anger or disencouragement rather than hopelessness and helplessness. The unique way that depression presents itself in males, combined with the undiagnosedness of men of color with depression, may intersect to cause further disparities for black boys. The APA report discusses how black boys are more likely to be viewed as older, less innocent, and more culpable than others' biased beliefs that may lead to harsher interventions in schools starting as early as pre-kindergarten. In fact, black boys are over 3 times more likely to be suspended from school than white students. These disparities, combined with a lack of awareness about what depression looks like in men and boys of color, may lead to social reprimand, school suspensions, and expulsion, rather than the mental health care that is needed. And I've been saying this for a really long time. For men in general, specifically men of color, we normally receive help when we're too far gone in any given life circumstance. Whereas though, and it's not about comparing apples and oranges, because you might get a woman in here that may say something totally different in terms of we don't get the help that we need, we're always ignored. And I don't combat that or kind of dismiss that. I just say, as a black male, in my experience, the people that I've grown up with, the uncles and cousins that I've seen, women have a lot more organizations and groups and preventative measures to help them to prevent trouble or prevent subsequent trouble. Most times when men, specifically men of color, receive the same level of support, they're already incarcerated. They've already been expelled from a school. They're already on a level 3 behavioral issue. They normally have already been labeled with some type of mental disorder or behavioral issue. They're already too far gone in whatever given circumstance that life has given them or they've received based on the experience that they have. And even me being a teacher, often you have a room full of students and somebody is just not behaving or being disruptive and being disrespectful. And we label it as that: disruption, disrespect. I have a book full of 504 plans that label each student, and some of them are health issues, but a lot of them are ADHD. Side note, I remember a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, I have this one group of 8th graders. And I remember we have been having just some issues, not major issues, but just a couple issues with a couple students. So I remember one day we had a early dismissal because we had like a award ceremony for the end of the school year. And I remember them trickling into the classroom at the beginning, and I had more time to be able to sit and do nothing. I didn't have to start a lesson plan, so we had time to just sit and chalk. So as certain ones came in the room, I would just pull them to the front of the desk and just say, hey, what's the issue? How can we make this better? And some of them I knew because I had a whole packet with their 504 plans in it, so I knew some of them had issues. But then some of them that weren't in the book, they also came to me with certain problems, and it was I had to look at them. I was forced to look at them differently, with them saying I have this issue. So there's one young man, he doesn't like sitting down. He stands up, he's walking around, he's always on his phone, he's talking to people. And I noticed once I pulled him to the side and I talked to him one-on-one, I got his attention. And one of the problems that I see, specifically with adolescent men of color, males of color, the problem is in a school setting, you have a room full of people. I can't be one-on-one with you. And most times there has to be a severe behavioral issue or mental issue for them to receive a one-on-one coach that's in the classroom with them, that's specifically there for that student. And most times parents don't advocate for it because they don't know that that's a resource that's accessible to their child, and some of them don't want their child to feel different. But we have class where they call paraprofessionals, and those paraprofessionals are normally one-on-ones for students in a classroom. And I just noticed that when you're able to separate the students and deal with them one-on-one, the problems for that day go away. But when you have a class with 30 to 40 students in it, it's really difficult when maybe 1/3 of them have these learning disabilities and the other half is realizing that I can act like I have these issues, and then you have the last third of that class that's just stuck because they want to do more, but it's like, what can I do when Mr. Couser is having to stop the class every 5 minutes and deal with this group of students that's having difficulty? So I'll continue on. Young men of color are also more likely to be caught up in the school to prison pipeline as a result of their experiences. So I'm going to stop for a second. Most of the schools, elementary, middle schools, are structured in what this phrase called school to prison pipeline. Most of the schools are, and I don't really understand if it's a mandatory thing that has happened in terms of managing behavior, or it's just something that has been implemented through workshops and, continuous learning processes that as school administrators go through and teachers go through. In terms of the leadership of the school going through their workshops. I don't know, but I've been to several different schools and I've noticed that even the way the students have to walk up and down the hallway, it mirrors how inmates have to walk up and down the hallways when they're in prison. And it's strange to me because nobody is seeing that little thing. I had teach in an after school program, and the after school program that I teach in actually was my elementary school, and I just noticed how it looks different in there. So older schools used to be open. It used to be open classrooms, and this school specifically, it had 4 classrooms going down both sides of the hallway, and you can walk through all of the classrooms from inside of the classrooms. So coming back there now, they've sealed the walls so you can't get through the classrooms from other classrooms, and the doors are different. So what used to be like long open windows or big open window is now a little box of a window, and is at the top of the door, and the doors have been painted like this real hospital sterile color. And I asked one of the administrators at the school, like, this feels like a jail. And her response was like they had to change the doors, they had to make the doors stronger because there had been this increase in violence and shootings at schools. So now the mandatory thing for school administrators to do, and I don't think it's mandated for them to do it, but some safety precautions that a lot of these schools are taking on is due in part to them being more safe, creating these safe spaces for children. So the classrooms could no longer, at that school in particular, could no longer be open, because if a gunman was in this room, they would be able to run through all the rooms and shoot up or do whatever damage that they were doing. So now each one of the rooms have become its own locked room. But we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be back on the Artist Exchange Radio Show only on Be Exposed Radio with more of this information on the psychology of young black men. So don't go anywhere.
I be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face. I be up in the way. 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 Bedroom phone ring, girl in t-shirt answers me. I get off on the way that she answers me. First time saw her, I knew she was the one for me. Ever since then, we've been vibing on some chemistry. It's just a matter of time. I know she feeling my vibe. I got the keys to the ride. She put her hands on my thigh. She got that look in her eye. SL what I'm riding. Royalty, call me highness. All day and overnighted. Cause it's crunch time when I'm grinding. This Adderall got me nauseous. Proceed with caution.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree
It's huge!
is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing!
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Now listen to BeExposedRadio.com. Check out this fire flashback.
We need to relearn what it is to be these bosses and how we conduct ourselves as business-minded individuals and just people in general. I let my gut, and if I call it gut or God or whatever, I'm led by that energy. I know where it comes from. I know where it's, taking me, and you have to figure out what is important to you, and don't play this game. It's a game that we've learned to play, this chess game, and life is not a chess game. Life is real, bones, flesh, blood, decisions.
Make sure you check out the Artist Exchange Show every Monday and Friday at 2 p.m. only on BeExposedRadio.com.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. It's me, your host, Nate. I am here. Today's show is a little bit different in that, the Artist Exchange is going to be different. We are working with the Pill Center and growing the storytelling platform at the Pill Center. And I work there, and I am one of the producers of some of the content that is produced there, and more specifically the storytelling workshops that happen. And upcoming for the Artist Exchange will be more of a storytelling based platform, and not just sharing your funny stories or just sharing who you are, but more specifically in the forms of a series. We've had two series so far, one on entrepreneurship, kind of building the artist from a more foundation level. We had a storytelling workshop last fall with Mama Linda Gauss, and that we talked to a lot of seniors who have been raised in the colored school system here in Maryland. And then we have a few that are in the works. One that we're working on now in conjunction with the Pill Center, where we're doing some storytelling in conjunction with some environmentalists. So there's an organization that is funding this storytelling workshop and giving more of a perspective of what our environment is, and those professionals and individuals have been advocating for it. Also, in conjunction with the Pill Center, we're doing more of, myself and Nancy Proctor are meeting soon to talk about how the Artist Exchange can be a platform for just a wide array of stories. I've been meeting a lot of individuals recently that have some really unique perspectives and stories. And we're getting back to the psychology of young black men in a few minutes, but I wanted to give some insight as well and some upcoming information. And this recently, Wednesday, we were at an event hosted by the Baltimore Museum of Industry. Myself and Nancy Proctor was there, and we heard a discussion on the steel mill companies that was in Sparrows Point, Bethlehem Steel, and how that whole part of Baltimore kind of grew up, and the different neighborhoods and individuals that kind of were pointed in that direction. And we spoke to a very interesting young man who came to Baltimore in 1959, straight out of college, and his experience. So the Artist Exchange will definitely be a place for storytelling and a place for us to be able to share who we are on a different level, beyond us just being artists and entrepreneurs and community leaders. And that's been my point from day one. What's your story? Like, who are you? And we're going to go back to that platform of bringing in two individuals and helping them to bridge that gap and kind of create from within. Two people who wouldn't necessarily know each other. And we're going to go back to that platform. And that's kind of how the Artist Exchange was birthed. And then we've done a lot of like individual interviews with people who I know personally and people who I have been meeting that have dynamic personalities and stories all on their own. But we're definitely going to get back to that. So stay tuned, stay locked in for that. If you look at our Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook pages, you've been seeing a post that says, share your story. And in that is our contact information, and we want people to come on and share their stories if you feel comfortable, or share your work experience or how this specific issue has attacked you. But that's kind of what that is, and I'm gonna get into a little bit more back into the psychology and depression in young black men, and we will finish out the show. So young men of color are also more likely to be caught up in the school to prison pipeline as a result of these experiences. Black male high school students are also more likely to miss school due to feeling unsafe in their classroom environment or community. They get in a physical fight in or outside the school setting, be a victim of sexual violence, and be a victim of physical dating violence. These risk factors remove what might otherwise be protective factors found in a school or close social relationship. One of the things that I remember from my childhood, and I'll say mainly being a teenager, is as a black male, I grew up in a house with a cousin who was actually the same age as I was, and a younger sister. So I'm gonna put my younger sister to the side for a second, and I'm gonna kind of discuss the relationship between myself and my cousin. We were the same exact age, and I noticed we were going through things differently, and how we were being treated. And I noticed that I was more protected, whereas I think my cousin was more, in terms of how my mother raised us, I felt like I was more pacified, and my cousin was more nurtured, and that she was given responsibilities and taught how to do certain things. And it wasn't that I didn't learn those things, but I learned because I was watching and listening at the same time. But I just noticed how we were raised differently. Okay, thanks. I wasn't really asked any questions, and people used to always think that I was being sneaky, but I didn't even have to be sneaky. It's not that I was doing anything out loud, but I didn't have to hide anything, and I was never questioned. And I think it was more so because I was a boy, and everybody always thought I was older. But my cousin was actually older than I was. But I just felt like, not necessarily with freedom. I think I had less freedom than the girls in my family had, but I just definitely feel like I wasn't questioned. Like if my cousin came in late, where were you? Who were you with? When I was late, it was more so just an admonishment for being late and not paying attention to time. It was never a question of who I was with. So a lot of the things that I've experienced as a teenager, as a boy, compared to my cousin, with sexuality, sex, drugs, all of those things that normal teens are given or those things are put in front of them, temptations and such. I think it was handled differently. So it was assumed that, I don't think it was assumed that I was doing it or not. It was just a question. And the crazy thing is, I never drank or smoked as a teen, but I know my cousin did. Not to be snitching on or anything, but it was just assumed that I would be doing those things and not all the other things. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
For shiny things, I can't allow this blasphemy. It's blasphemy. Why would you treat yourself like that? We didn't come this far just to fall right back. Don't lose yourself, stay on track. Baby, you're a god. Baby, you're a god. Believe that. Full of the things that we've overcome. Full of unspoken battles we won. You're so much better than that. Sometimes the truth ain't always.
We're rewarding you for something you already do. Listening to us. It's Radio Loyalty, and it's an easy way for you to get free stuff. All you do is sign up. Go ahead and click the banner now. You'll earn points as you listen. Points you can trade in for great products and services in the Radio Loyalty store. You can earn even more points when you share your favorite station with friends on Facebook and Twitter. Radio Loyalty. It's free to sign up, so click the banner to join now.
Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
You want to start off?
I think I'll get it out of the way on a who's not.
Okay, do it.
The Orioles.
Right.
They got swept by the Royals. They lost 4 in a row, and the last 5 games have all been decided by 1 run.
Mm-hmm.
The game before, or the last game that they lost before the Royals was the Nationals, and it was Weeders, of course, one with a home run.
Hit the home run.
Right.
They were going into that National series. It seemed like they were doing so well, and they just crapped out. They got that game postponed, so who knows when they're going to replay that or play that game.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first not for the night.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and weigh in on my who's not, and I'm going to talk about the San Diego Padres.
The Padres. That's okay. You Padres just took my answer.
They're in last place in the NL West. They've lost 8 of their last 10. Their run differential is a negative 65, which is just horrible. So when you have well, let me just talk about run differential a little bit. It's kind of like the
how much you're winning or losing your games by, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the margin of victory, kind of.
Right.
So when you're in a negative number, that means that you're.
Then your average game you're losing
by a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, a number like negative 65. You are
listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Hey, what's up, and welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BigExposedRadio.com. Getting back to the subject, there is clearly a need amongst national conversations. There is clearly a need among national conversations of suicide for understanding how the role of masculinity, beliefs, and social norms intersect to explain the disparities in the health and well-being. As science advances, there's a growing body of literature, but also a growing number of questions. Now is the time to leverage the tools and opportunities to make a difference in possibly saving a life. So, one of the things that I felt like was my issue was, I think people never see young, especially in, I want to say urban environments, but as what we know to be the typical family structure is not necessarily typical. And I think even within those typical structures, black boys are often grown up faster than what they should be. So if something is wrong with them, they're told to suck it up, they're told to deal with it, they're told to man up. And it's never that way with our women children, our young ladies. And I think the problem is young black men aren't given the tools to kind of communicate something is wrong. I know something is wrong. I'm trying to show that something's wrong, but you're telling me to man up. So in my mind, I learned that when something's wrong, suck it up, hold it in, don't tell people, don't show it to people, get through it. And depression becomes a natural order in our life, because depression happens when there's a buildup of mental chaos in our lives that we have not gotten rid of, we haven't gotten through, we haven't learned how to face it and get through it. So what happens is these young men grow up and to be depressed. I never forget a play that I saw a number of years ago at the National Theater Festival in Winston-Salem, and it was called We Be I Me. And it was a production that centered around this one young man. And the start of the play started at the end of this man's life. At the beginning of the play, he kills his wife. And it's never understood why he killed her or what circumstances surrounded him killing. But the rest of the play kind of goes backwards from that moment to a moment where he was molested. And then you learn something has happened in him that caused conflict, and his way of getting out the aggression or the anger or the frustration was to be more angry, more frustrated, and that turned into him physically harming someone, which was his wife, who he killed at the beginning of the play. And I thought that was such a powerful depiction of how black men are treated. So we think that this person is an animal throughout the whole production. And then we learn at the very end that it was this one act that got us to the point of conflict. And at that point, he's far gone in this. He's been living this way. He's been, this mentality and this ideal in him has been growing for a very long time. And we just see the results of it. We see the results of his behavior. And I really need people to stop treating their male children much harsher than they treat their female children. And I need that to stop. We're seeing all these instances with the Central Park Five and how these young men were just labeled animals. Anytime a young black male acts out, it's almost as if we don't see them being a child, not being able or not having the faculties or the resources to be able to communicate that they're in trouble or they feel in some type of way. We always attack the behavior, and we never go any deeper than that. And I think that is how many of us as black men have gotten to the point that we've gotten to. Although black boys may face unique challenges, most racial ethnic minorities, boys and men, as well as their families and communities, are resilient and seek positive growth and health. Having a greater sense of control over social and political forces, culturally responsive interventions, health, cultural identities, and less rigid notions of masculinity show promise for helping racial ethnic minority males become more resilient to depressive symptoms. Specifically, helpful adolescents learn to display self-control over their emotions, talk with parents or friends, seek help, and have positive relationships with adults. These can help to build resilience. So I think in all of that, I'm hearing more so we have to begin to look deeper in our young people. When an infant cries, it's not because they just don't have words. It's because something's wrong. They hungry, they wet, or they uncomfortable. And those three things normally you got to go down. So when you hear a baby screaming and hollering, you check their pamper. Okay, they're not wet, so they might be hungry. You try to feed them the bottle. They don't want the bottle. Then you normally, are they hot? Let me see if they hot. Because maybe they just uncomfortable. Maybe they cold. Maybe they too hot. Maybe, they can't sense anybody, so they feel like they by themselves. But once especially a young man grows beyond that, we don't look at their outburst as a reason for their behavior. Meaning, we see the outburst, but we don't see what's beneath that. Did I just embarrass this child by reprimanding him for his behavior? So now he has to go beyond what is normal for his behavior to prove a point. So I think this article is really pointing out some interesting things, and I'm going to repost it. What can we do to reduce depression-related health disparities in boys and men of color? The first one is teachers should take continuing education courses on cultural bias and depression and black boys to help address the problems that are faced in a school setting. Now, I don't know any programs, college programs or continuing studying programs that specifically address black males, but it does say a lot about there are a lot of courses that just deal with the psychology or the urban changes that we're seeing. And just making yourself more, not even going to class, but just getting out into the communities as teachers, administrative, and staff members, getting out in the communities where these children live and seeing what's going on. I know a lot of teachers that teach at schools that they don't live in those neighborhoods. So they don't know really what these children are going through. They don't know it was a shooting on Saturday night, and they still hype from it, or maybe somebody that they know. They normally hear about it on the news, but don't correlate that with, this is the community that my students are coming from. So they're not understanding. So when they get to school on Monday morning and the class is like going crazy, they don't really get it. If they haven't connected, there may have been a death amongst, the friends or family members or the neighbors of these students, and they kind of on edge. They're not really talking about it, but if you listen, they may be talking about it. So I think getting out into community, I don't think going into a classroom is going to help you, because that's somebody who also doesn't have a connection with the community that your students are from, telling you what your students are feeling. So I think getting out, maybe go to a store or the shopping center or go to the market in that neighborhood and just see how people relate to each other. I'm not saying just sit and watch. That may not be healthy or safe, but go to the market or go to the laundromat or, stay after school one day and maybe walk through the neighborhood or something, but become more interactive. I always agree with continuous education, but I think that further disconnects you and doesn't necessarily connect you. Clinicians need to stay up to date on best practices and working with racial, ethnic, minority boys and men to make sure that they are not missing signs of mental illness. And I think we're seeing that more so in the new drugs that are coming out. I just watched an interview with Wendy Williams, and she was talking about her son being hooked on synthetic marijuana, K2. And she said there wasn't a smell. There wasn't a smell. It's just his behavior changed overnight. And there wasn't anything that could have given her a sign that he was doing synthetic marijuana, because he was doing just a vape pen. And, the vape pens are what people are doing. So she was looking for drugs and not even looking at this vape pen being what the drugs were in. So realizing other factors that play a part in suppressing behavior that may be different or advanced, or new drugs, new ways of consuming drugs, music, places where your children hang out at now, technology. Those things will give you a sign as to what your children are doing. Monitoring their page. I'm not saying take their phone and go through it, but go through their pages, or have somebody go through their page and see like the conversations that are going on. Sometimes the post may not be the problem, but when you get down in the comment section, you can sometimes see who your child is, who people in relationship to your child are, and how people feel about your child, how your child feels. Then you can start seeing it. So look in the comments. Don't just look at the post, because the post could be something harmless, but the conversations within the post. The next one is researchers should continue to study health disparities in boys and men of color, as well as how resilience can be formed at young age and strengthened through the life course. I'm a little tired of the research. I think we have enough research. I think we know what the problem is. We've researched enough. I think we need to actively pursue ways of helping young males to express themselves. And part of that is not shunning anything that doesn't seem like hypermasculinity. And I really feel like that could be a means to helping us to grow beyond what we think men are and how men should be. And I think once we can do that, then we'll be able to successfully help young men to communicate, simply communicate. The next one is community members should consider how to create protective factors for vulnerable boys in their communities. Mentoring opportunities, after school programs. Those two are good, but protective measures for me is I would think a protective measure, because it says community members should consider how to create protective factors for vulnerable boys. It has been said several times that sexual predators attack young people who aren't being watched. And that young people who may be going home by themselves and there's nobody checking up on them, or they may live in a household full of people and they just a number in that house and nobody's really paying attention to them. That's why most of the people who are Okay, most of the people who are abusers, they are seeing that it's 30 people that may live in this house. And you never ask this person how their day is going. This person is going down a rabbit hole of emotions and you're not even addressing it. And then they start looking at that person as a person that they're going to kind of single out. We have a couple more, but okay, we have 2 minutes. So policymakers should consider legislation, regulatory, and administrative actions for vulnerable boys and seek to remove systematic structures that marginalize boys and men of color. And we saw this, we're here in Baltimore, we saw this a couple weekends ago where we was celebrating Memorial Weekend and there was a lot of young people out in the harbor, and the police officers were extra aggressive with them. And there was actually a tweet that was going around amongst the Baltimore City Public Police Department, and it was saying, you know, don't look at these children as children because they're out there doing violent things. So these police officers they went into their shifts thinking that they're dealing with young people who had adult mentalities, opposed to dealing with them accordingly. And you can't police people, because then I feel like you're pushing me into a box and I'm naturally want to fight out of it or get my way out of it. But we're going to take our final break. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, and I'm going to sum up the last few things. So don't go anywhere. The Artist Exchange Radio Show only on BigExposedRadio.com.
First they love you, then desert you. Leave with a plate full with no spoon. Ain't no space, I can't escape negativity. I got used to the taste. I've been bad, burned, then fucked over. But remain strong through the past over. Kicking haters out of the way like masked over. Roll up, sip something, let it pass over. Who would I be? It ain't the man to me that let the next man take advantage of me. When that storm come, no pan I see. Get with it, not without it, then you'll see. I peep the haters, they know I'm greater. That's why they buzzing for the elevator. But I can't save it, it'll be too loud. On the pedal stool, don't carry fakers. Always got your hand out demanding favors. When I just looked out, now you need more paper. I can't breathe, give me 3 feet. I never let y'all be the death of me. When my patients run that, yeah, nigga OT. Cause they wanna see me down like I'm NCT. 6 words, get the fuck away from me. See, I help you out if you can help yourself. I keep it G till I DIE. Now excuse me while I get back to PC. HOP ain't music sleep. While your third eye always on me. I'm stacking green just to feed the team. My boo, she know that I'm king. When chasing my dream, these niggas it seems I rip them, trash them, then put on new jeans. Right. See the problem is, man, you know, I keep it 100.
Like the one thing you always gotta remember is people gonna try to project their insecurities onto you. But you can't listen to what them niggas saying. You gotta get out here and do your shit regardless. You gonna do what you love for the rest of your life anyway. So why not turn that shit into something? Be a man of everything you say. This shit bigger than me, man. Like yeah, I'm good and all that, but you know what I mean? I ain't shit without y'all. So no matter what you up to, you gotta go hard. Don't matter. Can you imagine how I really having nothing is? Stomach growling, you ain't got no food in the fridge. Surviving on a jail diet of water and bread. No father figure, that's cause my father dead. Mom's bringing different niggas in and out the crib. No money, so you seen it's less than all your friends. But it a joke because your mother was a crackhead. Older sister hoeing off, giving all the homies head. I could wait for your response, but they let her hear me talk, so I'll just wait for the applause.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now. So, just in closing, welcome back. So, in closing, the last part of it was, what can we do to reduce depression in young black men and related health disparities in boys and men of color? We talked about teachers, furthering their education and being more connected to the individuals that are in front of them, beyond them just being in the classroom with them every day. We went to researchers and clinicians actually being more proactive. You can do all these research studies and follow around a group of young men, but you have to be more active. So we need to start trying out some of the solutions that you've come up with, or creating solutions from all of the research that you've done. We went to the community members being more proactive in terms of seeing vulnerable boys and protecting them. Not allowing, individuals to necessarily be alone with children. We've had a lot of posts about not making your boyfriend right off the bat your babysitter, because that could be detrimental. But what is wrong with the behavior that you are with a man or a partner that you don't trust around your children? That seems to me to be the bigger problem, even though the person doing the crime is a problem, but you with somebody who you don't trust around your children. Like, that makes no sense to me. And it went down to the last one being, everyone can work together to eliminate the persistent exposure to implicit bias and microaggressions in settings where boys and men of color live, learn, work, play, and seek health care. I think most people are more aggressive to black men. And if there's a window of opportunity for you to get in there and explode with your bias and your microaggressions, I see it happening. I see a lot of women, black women, women of color on social media creating these general blanket statements about black men. And not even caring what the effects of that post or that messaging is saying to the men that are in their individual lives. The friends, the families, the relationships that they may have that are great, but they're making this blanket statement and not adding any exclusions to it, or be direct in who you're talking to. If it's somebody in your life or some bodies in your life that are causing you pain, speak on them. And I don't think social media is the place to do it, but if nothing is happening, we've learned that social media has a unique platform to expose things that privately we aren't strong enough or equipped enough to be able to handle, but we have to be more so this is a very sensitive topic for me. It's very I would say it's sensitive to me because as a black male, I've seen several instances where my point of view is disregarded by black women, other black people of color in general, and just the communities of people that I'm working with that are not of the black male or black community, and how they react to us. And I really see it as being a problem, specifically with young men, but I also see it in the interactions amongst older men, adult men in general. But we have to get to a point where we're just addressing our issues across the board. I specifically talked a lot about young black males today and young men in my age range, but we have to get to a point where we're comfortable
and communicating with each other in a way that is proactive and forward moving and upward moving, and not blaming or shaming or abusing people further. And I think this article kind of, in its own way, kind of addresses a lot of those topics. So as we close out today's show, next week we're going to have, our guest today wasn't able to make it, but we're going to have a couple guests next week. Blue Waters will be returning back with us, and we'll be having Precious Givens, Poets for Dinner. She'll be joining us next week. And so let's get to a place where we're comfortable with talking with each other, and we're able to identify what our issues are, and we're actively listening. Jewel Guy, she's a phenomenal young lady, a beautiful voice, very creative, very this open. She has this series that she's working on. Well, I don't know if it's a series, but this project that she's working on where she's specifically targeting men of color, and she's asking some really provocative and normally taboo questions. And her last statement was today was this: love somebody, contact somebody who you haven't been in touch with, or just somebody you want to talk to, and be a listening ear. Meaning close your mouth and just listen to them. Be actively open to what may be going on with them and really take it in, opposed to trying to give them advice. Let them tell their story. So this has been another edition of the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Thank you, Mr. Aldo, the engineer. And please keep the Kane family in your prayers as the family grieves in this next week leading up to Wednesday. And grief does not last up until the funeral itself, but just keep my family, my friends in your prayers, and that this is not an easy time, and death is definitely not for human consumption. It's not something that any of us, I don't care how comfortable you say you are, in the moment when it happens, it's still as if your heart has been ripped out of your chest and there's a big void that's missing. So my love, my light, everything goes out to my friend Brandy and her brothers and sisters, and to Miss Diane. Like I'm just praying that you're in a better place, and you're at peace, and you came to a level of peace. And you will forever be a memory for me, and somebody who I would definitely miss immensely. So this has been the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Real artists, real talk, real live, only on BeExposedRadio.com. Tune in, watch us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, all those things for updates, new guest announcements. Peace out. That's Friday. Next up, It Is What It Is Radio Show at 9 p.m. Tune in.
The Artist Exchange Radio Show every Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Every Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artist, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com.
I was meeting with a friend yesterday, and I've gotten to the point where don't ask me a question because the truth is going to come out. And
exactly.
Just don't do it.
If you ain't looking for the truth, don't come to me.
Don't do it because I can't hold my tongue, and she wants